I'm going to be continuing my week 4 topic on why I decided to become Catholic. The great thing about our country is the freedom of religion. So in our country, anybody can choose to follow any religion, or you can choose not to follow any religion. So that is a freedom that we are given to us by the Constitution. So for myself, all my life I've been following Christianity, and most of that has been on the Protestant side of the faith until recently when I decided to convert to Catholicism. And the reasons for that revolve really around 3 main issues, and those issues are authority, historical, and scriptural. So if I look at authority on a Protestant side of the faith, that was an issue for me because when you look at Protestantism, there are so many different denominations. In fact, Barrett's World Christian Encyclopedia says that there are over 9,000 different denominations in 238 countries around the world. It's a lot of denominations, and when you look at all those denominations, you can't point to any specific leader among those denominations. And that was a problem for me. When I look at Catholicism, obviously they have the Pope, and he was a very visible leader of the Catholic Church. And they're able to point to the lineage of the Pope all the way back to Peter. So there's some historical background that validates their claim as far as him being a leader of the church. The other issue that I had revolves around historical. So on the Protestant side of the faith, when you look at Martin Luther, he pretty much started the Protestant Reformation when he nailed the 95 Theses on the church door in Wittenberg. And from that time, the Protestantism was born, and thousands of different denominations splintered off from that point. And the reason for that is that whenever a church is started or a denomination is started, there comes a point when there's somebody who doesn't agree with a certain doctrine, and they'll decide to split off and form another church. And then after a while, somebody splits off that church and forms another church, and it just keeps going and going and going. So that was a problem for me. When I look at Catholicism, they point to the Church Fathers, which historically goes back to the time of the apostles. So if you look at Polycarp of Smyrna and Ignatius of Antioch, both of them learned underneath the Apostle John, who was one of the original 12 disciples. And then if you look at Clement of Rome, he was ordained by Peter, who again was one of the original 12 disciples. And all this information I got from rsc.byu.edu, which is a Brigham Young University website. Now obviously that is not a Catholic institution. So there is history there that goes all the way back to the apostles. And the last issue that I had to deal with was scriptural. And there was a scriptural verse that I had a hard time dealing with because I couldn't deny what it says. And that was in Matthew chapter 16, verses 18 and 19. And in those verses, Jesus is speaking to Peter. And he says, "Thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it." And then he says, "I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." So it was obvious to me that Jesus was giving Peter certain authority that he didn't give to any of the other 12 disciples. So that really spoke volumes to me. So when I'm looking at these three issues, that was really what led me to convert to Catholicism. And this was not an easy decision for me to make, because all the years I spent on the Protestant side of faith, I had to work through a lot of issues that took time. But going through these three main issues, it became obvious to me that based on my conclusions, I had to convert to Catholicism. Thanks.